Hello, Lawrence University Vikings friends, fans, and families, and welcome to the latest installment of our Goal to Go sessions brought to you by the LU Vikings Gridiron Club's YouTube channel. Today, we will be meeting with a young man who I think for Lawrence University football embodies transcendence in the sense that this young man was a player on the team, someone I had the privilege of watching in action as a player, and has now been for the last 2 seasons an assistant coach for the Vikings. We're going to welcome today Coach Chris Immediato. Coach, welcome to our sessions.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Coach, we're excited to have you as we approach the end of yet another Lawrence University Vikings season. There's much to discuss as we take stock of the season that's been, and we talk to you a little bit about the past, the present, and the future of Lawrence University Vikings football. But I'd like to start with, I think, an essential background so that folks know a little bit more about you. And that is that I see that you came to Lawrence originally as a player. We know that. You graduated, I believe, in the spring of 2024. And I think pretty much immediately, or at least immediately it seemed to me, you made the decision to stay on as a coach. Now, that's a lot to cover, but can you walk us through the path that brought you to Appleton in the first place? And what made you decide to stick around as a coach?
My college career or path started with me going to the University of New Hampshire right out of high school in 2018. I thought I was just going to be a biology student and go on into the science field afterwards. But after a little bit, I started to really miss the game of football. It didn't feel right. In 2019, I started looking into transferring. I was looking at some bigger schools closer to home in Florida, as well as some smaller schools, with the thought that I wasn't 100% certain if I was looking to go somewhere to coach or just try and maybe be a part of a staff as like a student and just like learn under like a big institution, or go somewhere smaller and look to play again. And then COVID hit, which shut down quite a bit. Not really many people were playing football at that point. And then finally through my connection with someone I actually graduated high school with, who some might know, Oni Sonian. He got me in touch with Coach Aker. And from there, Coach Aker I got really, really positive response from that staff and felt welcomed. And so that's how I made my way here to Lawrence and then to Appleton. Then played for 3 seasons, graduated with a biology degree. Part of coming to play football here was not just to get to play again, but it was to be able to really learn what it meant to be a part of a higher level football program, because I wanted some kind of job in football afterwards. And so the best way I could learn the game of football better was to go somewhere and play. So my plan all along, kind of after coming to Lawrence, was to learn what I could from here and then move on to some kind of career in coaching afterwards. The reasons why I stayed specifically at Lawrence is because I was able to step right into it after playing and stay with a organization that meant a lot to me, obviously, and that I'd been a part of for 3 seasons, and I could continue to develop with Lawrence, which was a really awesome opportunity, and I'm glad that I was able to have it. To the point of why stick around here is also just because, or in part because of, when I attach to something, I really attach, like I hold on to it, both for my my fan bases in professional sports and all that and stuff like that. Being a part of an institution and something that feels bigger than just me, is what kind of adds a lot of the meaning and love for what I do behind it.
Reflecting on what you've said, Coach, it seems to me that there was a realization in the off years when you were at University of New Hampshire and leading up to your time here at Lawrence that you came to the realization, being apart from football, that you wanted to be a part of football and that football was going to likely be a big part of who you are and what you were going to be doing into the future. The other thing is, for those of you who may not have picked up on this, when we've talked about Coach's pathway to Lawrence University, what you may not have picked up on is indirectly that path to Lawrence University in Appleton fed through Finland Just wanted folks to know that. I'm going to go back to this thing about your connection with Lawrence football. And I can see that for you, I think these are fairly deep roots that you now have. As I've asked a few others before, to you, given your experience, what does it truly mean to be a Lawrence Viking?
When I think of Lawrence and being a Viking, I think of the idea of taking it all in. And I think part of being a Lawrence Viking is embracing that diversity of experience and knowledge. And, being a Lawrence Viking is being on the field and all the work and sweat and all that you put into to being a great football player. But then it's just as much all the work in, the late nights in the library and, the late nights studying and working on group presentations. I think that's a big part of being a Viking, and a bigger part of being a part of a liberal arts college is taking experience and knowledge from all the different fields.
You've been part of a major coaching transition. So, Coach, what's allowed you to remain committed to the program?
Commitment to an institution and something bigger than myself. Like I said before, to me personally, the institution is always the thing that comes first before the individual. Um, it's what can I do for the institution that's given me, like, I wouldn't have any of this without the institution. It is the LU that we wear on our helmets and on our jerseys and on our apparel that will always be there. And it is my commitment to the institution, which is, and my loyalty and love for everything that it's done for me, that's allowed me and drives me to continue to build it and help it turn into what I want it to see it become, to grow and to improve and develop into something that we can be proud of while I'm a part of it, and while all this members of these current staff and the current players we have right now are a part of it, into something that we can all look back to, one day when we're not here anymore, whether for whatever reasons that those may be. We can look at pride with what we helped build and develop.
It seems to me from the comments, the concept for you is forever a Viking, that you belong to the program belongs to you. And I think that's a reassuring way to see how players, past and present, connect with the program and hopefully continue to support it and sustain it after that as well. You're obviously an epitome of that kind of commitment. Let's talk a little bit then about your coaching experience and the objectives of what you're trying to do as one of the coaches on the defensive side of the ball. For you, what is one of the biggest challenges or opportunities in developing a defensive line in a conference like the Midwest Conference?
I think one things that we're trying to work on is, we have guys from all over the place that aren't necessarily, from around here, from around in Wisconsin. So it's bringing them to a new environment, and it's a little bit of a shock, and they're starting to realize it just now. This is when things are starting to change. That weather, it hits a little different once you start getting into those October, November. So that's definitely a challenge. I mean, we have a lot of really great opponents in this conference, but I don't see that as a negative. I see that as a positive. Being able to go against some really great offensive lines like the one in Monmouth, the one from Lake Forest. All respect to our opponents, and when they're good, that's good for us, because that gives us that we're able to test ourselves and really use those as like marking points for where we are. And as we continue to develop, we'll be able to keep using teams like that in our conference to show us how we're improving and show kind of the marking stick to where we are and where we need to get to.
I was curious to know, kind of looking for an analogy or connection, if there was an NFL defensive lineman, whether past or present, that it embodies a technique that you encourage your players to emulate.
I couldn't really name a specific player. And a large part of that is just as much as these players are learning all this new defense for the first time, with a new defensive mind at head coach. I'm kind of learning how he wants his units to be coached, and the kind of techniques and stuff that are important to him, he actually gave me a list of what we call the 5 essentials on how to coach the defensive line. And it's really learning those and imparting what are the best ways that I can design drills, that I can design practices around. How do I emphasize those techniques to them so that we can constantly improve upon them, master them, so that we can kind of get those essentials down. And then, the hope in future seasons as we continue to develop is to be able to master those essentials to then work more on to like mastering or improving upon the smaller details, the smaller part of techniques.
If you could trade places for 1 week with any college football coach in the country at any level, and it can't be Lawrence, who would it be and why?
Partially for maybe some selfish reasons, but I also think there's some solid logic behind the move. And I don't know the specific name of the coach, but I think I would love to switch places with a defensive line coach from the Miami Hurricanes. Truthfully, I am a Miami fan in professional sports, and that kind of goes for the NCAA as well. Second to the Vikings, of course. I would love to go there for
Oh, you
reasons
can't
that
you can't have LU without the U, right?
there you go. Um, that is a team that I felt feels like goes in a direction that I think more professional and college teams need to do, and I feel like they've really built that team in the trenches. And that's where I live. I've always been in the defensive line and played some O line in high school, but I've always been on the line. And I would really love to pick the brains of someone like Cristobal and that defense, some of that other defensive staff to what their philosophy is to building one of the more dominant defensive line units in Division One college football right now. That's a really impressive unit. And then I think in the you have to think about the flip side of things. If we're switching places, it doesn't mean I'm just there. It means that that coach is here. And I would love to see the kind of what he would bring, having someone who's built such an impressive unit and learning how he would run things and things how he would design things to best improve upon techniques and drills and stuff like that I think would be a really cool experience for our guys here.
So we're going to step away from the hypothetical and get back to the very real. Let's talk about the tradition of the game coming up. It will be a bittersweet day for a handful of very dedicated players to this team. Seniors, guys you played alongside at one point, I think with one possible exception in there that I can think of. There's a lot of history associated with this game involving two teams that have played each other well more than 100 times. One of the oldest rivalries in the country, one that compares, I think, numerically in terms of the times the contest has been played with Army versus Navy. And I know that you've lived that experience. You've had others talk to you about the significance and importance of the game for the institution. And I'm wondering what message you will be conveying to the players that you are interacting with and you're coaching about this game, what the message is for them, what you hope that they take away as they prepare for a game that for some of them they have not participated in before and may not appreciate that historical significance.
This was actually something I was touching on with my defensive line unit just today, talking about the fact that we have a lot of new faces both on the coaching staff as well as incoming freshmen. We have a lot of people that while Coach Zags was a part of this conference and he's played this school before, he doesn't fully understand what it means to be in this specific rivalry, and he's going to get his first experience with that coming up on Saturday, and I think he's very excited, which is awesome for me and for the rest of the guys who have been here to see that this already means something to him. But this game is hugely significant. It's a rivalry game, and there's a lot of passion and drive to get on the right side of this thing. This is a team that and using that we don't like, and it's truthful. We don't like this team, and they don't like us. And while some may see that as like a negative or like a bad thing, I think it's actually one of my favorite things about sports in general is rivalries, is that yes, you dislike the opponent and you dislike this one maybe in particular over some others, but it's that feeling for each other that makes this game feel more exciting than all the other, the other nine we get to play every year. Is that this is the game we kind of you put a circle, an explanation mark, some kind of something in your calendar every year that this is the day we get to play. And the vitriol towards each other just makes the passion that much more, and the game feel that much more intense and exciting and all that. We have a quote that one of our coaches uses in a presentation when we give the history every year of the rivalry, is something that was written in a Lawrence newspaper back when we thought, or they thought, that football might get banned in America, and it was something along the lines of, if football or Ripon must die, then it ought to be Ripon. And I think that's a really funny quote, but I can't help of every time that I do hear it, I do think of like, well, as much as I hate Ripon, I would never want Ripon to go away, because then I wouldn't get that game at the end of the year. And that would suck not to get to play them at the end of the year, because it means something to me to get to play them every year.
Every superhero has to have his villain. So the other thing that we mentioned here leading into this line of discussion was, of course, that this is also senior day. And I know that for you, that carries a little more significance because of the fact that these were guys that you came up alongside during the tail end of your playing days in Lawrence. So is there any additional emotional weight that honoring the graduating seniors has in terms of preparing for the game, or the focus, or anything that that means in terms of the younger players of the coaching staff?
I think it means a ton to be sending these guys off. And like you mentioned, yes, I think all of our players, both that will be participating and those that won't be able to due to injuries or various reasons, I did at one point play with, except for I believe Mo Bradshaw. Those are guys that I went through the transition of playing in the trenches with them to being on the sideline while they were still in the game. And so I have a lot of connections and memories with these guys. And this is one of the last classes. I believe there will be a couple holdovers from the next one that I think will still caught me in the tail end of my playing days. But it's getting close. It just shows you how time doesn't stop moving. It's slowly. It's gonna come very quickly. Where they're only going to know me for the guys who are here are only going to know me from the sideline. I'm really excited for these guys, because these are the guys who have stuck with it through the hardest of times, that have not let go of the rope, even when it would be really easy to. Going through a huge coaching change, all of that, those are huge challenges that obviously not everyone is up to undertaking. And it speaks a lot to these seniors who stuck with it, because again, of the institution, as we talked about, being so important, and the people who are still a part of the institution being so important to them, that they stuck around and continue to fight to improve and win every day that they're here.
We got some great dudes, and it's interesting. And even with Mo, although you did not necessarily play alongside him, you probably had as much contact with him as any player that you wouldn't have played alongside, because he is another guy on the defensive line. But now, Coach, the thing that I've been trying to implement here over the last few of these sessions is kind of a personal and fun rapid fire series of questions. So we're about to run through about 4 or 5 of those, and let's see what kind of answers you can come up with. Are you ready to go on this?
Go ahead.
All right, here we go. First one is, let's talk about this. What is the best or your favorite piece of football gear that you have ever owned or used, whether cleats, gloves, helmet, anything?
I'd have to go with my gloves that I got from it's a Twitter account called Lyman Problems, and they post a lot of stuff about funny stuff about what it's like to be a lineman. And I had a pair of gloves that when you put them together like this, it said Trench Gang, and I really did like those.
Whether as a player or now as a coach, is there any favorite pregame meal of yours?
Well, I think especially when we're on the road, I always love when we're able to have pancakes, because I love a little bit of sweetness with some syrup, but then also getting some carbs in you before a game, especially as that weather gets colder. It's always good to have some extra fuel in there to help keep you warm.
Still go with pancakes as a coach too?
Oh yeah, pancakes there's no beating them.
Pump up song before a game. Do you have any go-to pump up songs at all?
Oh, I have 3 or 4 playlists for different scenarios, from working out to obviously, like you said, pregame. And I think one of my go-tos, especially in the upcoming week, is Paint It Black.
What is the one TV show or movie character that you would want to play alongside at defensive tackle next to you?
There's any fantasy fans, there's a great show called The Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon Prime. If you have any people who enjoy high fantasy, and he is he's called a half giant, and he's a barbarian, so he has like the power to use his rage to increase his strength, and I think he'd be great to have on the defensive line next to me.
I think personally, I'm asking myself this question. I'm probably going to go with Hulk.
That's the easy one. Yeah, truth, true. It's.
That's
But you
too
gotta think outside
obvious,
the
right?
box sometimes.
Let's go with something more obscure. I like your choice.
Yeah.
Okay, we got one more. What is your most memorable non-football moment as a student at Lawrence?
Senior capstone was a big one because especially the biology capstone is a little bit unique among some of the ones programs at Lawrence because it is a program that takes a full year outside of many of which are just done in a term or even just two. But the biology capstone is a full year program that involves a lot of research and writing papers and studying. And I think after what was probably an 11 or 12-hour night in the day in the library, finally finishing up the final touches on that paper and submitting it were a pretty good feeling. And then I think probably the most obvious one was walking across the stage with my family there in the audience, as well as the coaching staff.
Well, there you have it, folks. Coach Chris Immediato. We wish you guys the most success this week. Ball out. Coaches, players, everyone. We hope you guys finish strong for the season. Play to the final bell. And again, we thank you so much for your time as you prepare for this historically significant game.
It's funny you say that to the last bell. It is said that the bells at Lawrence ring 3 times, possibly can ring 3 times in one year. Once when the new students are incoming, the second time at graduation, at commencement, and then the third time is when Lawrence football beats Ripon football. And that's a bell we haven't heard in a little while. So we would very much like to finish by ringing that bell.
Coach Immediato, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So, folks, thanks again for tuning in to our YouTube channel. If you're interested in finding out anything more about the Gridiron Club here at Lawrence University, you can check us out on the athletic website. We have a page there under football. You can check us out there. Finally, folks, if you are interested, we're still going to be working on trying to provide some content after the season wraps on Saturday. And we're always open to suggestions as to where we may go with some of that content. So if you're interested in passing along a suggestion, write down this email address. It's pretty simple. LUVikingsGC, all one word. Again, LUVikingsGC, as in Gridiron Club, @gmail.com. We thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Good night.